There's increasing alarm about the number of American teenagers dealing with depression. Now the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending all children 12 years and older be screened for depression annually. This is the first change to the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines in a decade. We're joined now by psychotherapist Mike Dow to discuss this important shift in thinking. Good on one hand, because everyone's now talking about it. Bad on the other hand, which means more and more kids are dealing with depression.
Yes.
It's truly an epidemic in many ways. So this shift, in your opinion, talk to me about the pros and cons.
Yeah, well, I think the pro is that we're doing something about it. We're talking. Since 2007, teen girls are especially at risk. Suicides in teen girls have doubled since 2007. That to me is shocking.
Yes.
You know, so I think we need to be doing something about it. I think, you know, pediatricians, primary care physicians, they're the front line. I'm a mental health professional. I often don't get to see these kids unless somebody knows, a parent, a teacher, that something's going on.
Somebody else says if they need help.
Exactly.
Then they come to your office.
And we know that up to two out of three kids with depression aren't diagnosed, so they don't get to see me. So we need somebody on the front line diagnosing the kid and then throwing the ball to me. You know, you're the quarterback, I'm gonna catch the ball.
Parents are the front line, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, parents
absolutely.
are the front line.
And the key to this, to me, is how it plays out.
Yeah.
You know, in medicine, there are a lot of times that we are required to do screenings, and it ends up becoming just check, 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 mark, check, check. And depression is such a, depression is not the same for any two individuals. It is very complex. It's actually a difficult diagnosis because people have to understand there's a big difference between being sad and dealing with growing up, which is a challenge at times, and being truly depressed.
Depression.
So if this is done the wrong way, you could end up with a lot of kids on antidepressants who maybe don't need to be. If it's done the right way, you're gonna see hopefully the trend towards more suicides dropping, but how it's accomplished is key. We've got to do it in a very careful way.
And you brought up an important point, Travis. You know, growing up can be tough. And so sometimes you can be sad. Every day is not going to be a great day. And then you have hormones doing all of this stuff. So sometimes parents will say, you know what, I think that's just their hormones. So how do you know as a parent when it's time to step back and say, maybe it's not just hormones. Maybe it's not just regular stuff. This is something serious. We need to talk to someone. What are the signs?
Yeah, that's a great question. All of you talked about sadness, right? So in adults, when we think of depression, all of us adults usually think of sadness, tearfulness. But in kids, it looks really different. So in kids, I want you to think of the following words, especially if you are a parent. Kids are gonna say things like stressed. They're gonna say things like down. In terms of their behavior, they're gonna sleep a lot, especially in teen boys. I did a lot of therapy in LA's public schools. You're gonna see a lot of behavioral problems. You're gonna see a lot of acting out in their body. They're gonna say they're sick a lot. They're not gonna wanna go to school. In their social lives, they're not gonna, all of a sudden, they're not gonna wanna see their friends. And in terms of the, that's just them being a teenager, you know, the moodiness. A depressive episode lasts for more than 2 weeks. So 2 weeks or more. So if it's a day, if it's a bad day, a bad couple days, that could be just moodiness, teenager being a teenager. If it's 2 weeks of all of a sudden they don't want to see their friends for 2 weeks, they're sleeping in till 2 p.m. on a Saturday or Sunday, they don't want to go to school anymore, that could be depression.
How do you broach this topic? I love the idea that there's going to be screening if done properly, but since a lot of the diagnosing really starts at home, what's the best way to have a conversation with your child?
Number one, if you have an open dialogue, have the conversation. But if your kid is, and by the way, one of the symptoms of depression is sort of climbing up and avoiding it and not wanting to talk, especially not wanting to talk to a parent, which is why some of the guidelines, the new guidelines in place, are assessing the child without the parent there.
Because that's tough, because a lot of teens don't want to talk to their parents just because they don't.
Exactly.
Just because they're teens.
Yeah.
Just because they're adolescents.
So if your kid won't talk to you, then it's also okay, if you can't have an open dialogue, it's okay to take your kid to the pediatrician, to a primary care doc, to a mental health professional, and say, hey, this is what I'm worried about. Can you screen my child without me present? Because when I was referred by a parent, by a teacher, and they came to me, a 14-year-old boy is way more likely to talk to me when he's depressed than a parent. I have to tell you that.